Just a few weeks into quarantine, my church's live stream unexpectedly and inexplicably ended up on the trending page somewhere in Eastern Russia. Now, don't ask me why, we have no idea. Theoretically, this is a good thing. We had a huge influx of a couple hundred apparently English-speaking viewers being freshly introduced to the gospel for the first time online. It's the kind of miracle that every pastor prays for. But as you might have guessed, we didn't exactly get the Soviet revival we were hoping for. They trolled the snot out of us. They poked at the music, they poked at the people on stage, the preaching, everything. I was deleting comments for 30 minutes after screenshotting all of the funny ones. Now, I've played enough CSGO to know that that was absolutely going to happen, but I do think it addresses a pretty massive flaw with our current paradigm of what church online looks like. We had a captive audience. We had excellent production value. Our worship team and preaching is top notch. Our live stream signal was clear and healthy, and our congregation and hosts were having an awesome time. But the vehicles we were using to communicate the truth of the gospel were fundamentally incompatible with the audience that stopped by to listen. I believe that we witnessed on a larger scale what happens every Sunday at nearly every live streamed church. And I don't think I have to work hard to prove that at all. Just check out how many of your views on Facebook are less than 30 seconds. The gospel is as life-changing and relevant as it has ever been, but I don't believe that doing what we've fundamentally always done and just throwing up a camera in the back of the room and shortening a service by 20 minutes is going to make the impact that we're hoping it will. The context of church has dramatically changed, and now it's time that the content of church changes too. Hi, I'm Caleb. I'm the Multimedia Marketing Director at Grand Rapids First and the President of Blackbar, which is an online ministry devoted to helping the global church understand how to use media, marketing, and tech to reach their world. At the very beginning of the pandemic, we helped tens of thousands of churches get online as quickly as possible. And as proud as I am of the global church making this transition to online as quickly and thoroughly as they did, I fundamentally believe that we have only taken the first tiny step towards what online ministry needs to be. For the time that I have left, I want to talk about an idea of what it could be and how we came to this conclusion. No, obviously this isn't the only idea, but I don't think I have to convince anybody that what we're doing right now is not going to work for very long. This is the time for innovation, experimentation, and a little bit of risk. First, instead of focusing too much on its limitations, because we've all heard plenty of those, I want to focus on what advantages online ministry has to offer. Now, research tells us that adding visual elements to your presentation can help your audience retain more information. And given that my audience consists of mostly grown-up church rats, I didn't even know that these open up. I don't know how to fix this. Ah! Buckle up, I am a graphic designer, not an illustrator. The first advantage of digital ministry is that the barrier of entry to be ministered to is lower than it's ever been. I can watch and engage with your church from the comfort of my own bed. No invite necessary, no uncomfortable dodging of strange smiling people trying to shake my hand at the door. The truth of the gospel is just a few taps away, and that's a good thing. This is a church lobby, not a mall kiosk. My social anxiety has enough to worry about. Number two, traditionally, churches focus primarily on geographical demographics. Your church's mission field is more or less the surrounding 10-mile area. Online, however, your physical location is entirely irrelevant. This allows your ministry to reach a much larger global audience, but it also allows you to focus on demographics other than location. Do you want to start a ministry specifically for teenagers with divorced parents? Or how about a ministry for older couples who miss the old hymns that they used to sing? Using the power of social media and targeting demographics, we can present the power of the gospel in hyper-contextualized vehicles for niche audiences around the world. And if there's anything I learned in the world of marketing, it's that targeted messaging is always going to be more effective than mass messaging, and that Facebook knows more about me than I do. The third advantage that virtual ministry brings is that the barrier of entry to minister is at an all-time low. You don't need a pastoral staff, worship team, and altar call to present the gospel in an effective way online. You need a phone and a face. I honestly and truly believe that the next big wave in ministry will not be conducted and directed by churches, but by individuals who discover the magnitude of the power that we have in our pockets. Wrong pocket. Now, for all of these advantages, there's one massive disadvantage that's floating in all of our faces. We're not the only kids on the block anymore. Allow me to demonstrate. The global church has now entered into the same playing field as Netflix, YouTube, video games, hanging out with your family, going outside, sleeping in. We are living in the most competitive time in human history for attention. And that's not even mentioning the scarier elephant in the room. Why should I watch your church when the best preachers and worship teams in the world are just as many clicks away? It's not an easy question to ask, and it's nearly impossible to answer, but it's the reality of the world that we're living in. I have never and will never advocate or encourage for competition among churches. We are one body and one mission. But if you can't succinctly and effectively tell me what your church is bringing to the online table, then you are unfortunately likely to be overshadowed by any number of churches who are already doing the typical church format better than you can. We don't need Hillsong knockoff number 45 online. We don't need Kinda Like Bethel but on a lower budget online. We need fresh, unique voices. The key to online success has never been emulation. The key to online success is not production value. The key to online success is differentiation. What can you make that no one else is offering? Who can you reach that no one else has found? I honestly and truly believe that these factors are going to lead to a mass online diversification of digital ministry. We need individuals who are passionate about hermeneutics to build and lead communities of people who are passionate about hermeneutics. We need individuals who are passionate about worship to build and lead communities of people who are passionate about worship. We need individuals who are passionate about apologetics and evangelism and racial equality and finances and gaming and media and basket weaving, whatever, to build and lead communities of people who are passionate about the same things. We need to stop viewing ministry as your church and my church and start viewing it as the church, a single collection, a unified body of diverse backgrounds, races, passions, and interests working towards the ultimate goal of bringing people to Christ and equipping them to be like him. Now, that's great, and certainly a goal worth aiming for, but the process of getting from A to B is kind of murky at best. We need a plan, a rubric that's flexible enough to work with each of these different communities, grounded in scripture, and proven to be effective. But where on earth are we going to find... Eyes up here, Nick. Step 1, identify your audience. In order to craft a contextualized message, we need to understand what the context is. I recommend you get as deadly specific with your description of your audience as possible. In fact, if you can, I suggest you narrow it down to a single person, real or imaginary. Now, I get it. The gospel is for everybody. We need to cast the net as wide as possible. But like we talked about earlier, targeted messaging is always more effective than mass messaging. But this isn't just a marketing principle, it's a biblical one. There's not one single book of the gospel. There's 4. Each of them tells more or less the same story from a different perspective, from an author with a different background, and for a different intended audience. It's the same reason we have men's ministries and women's ministries and youth ministries and kids ministries. The more we can narrow down the recipient of the gospel, the more we can better describe the power of it in a language they can understand. Step 2, identify with your audience. Blue sky do, we can too. Never mind the skin tone, Michael's was out of sickly pale. Now listen, if your plan is to open up a ministry for skaters and you can't tell the difference between a penny board and a longboard, you're gonna have a bad time. If your target audience isn't one that you already belong to, you need to invest the time and energy into learning the subculture you're trying to influence. You can't expect to lead if you're unwilling to participate. This isn't a new concept either. It's absolutely normal for missionaries heading to different countries to spend a year or more just learning the language, the culture, the people, this new world that they've been called to. The same goes for digital people groups. Now, if you're fortunate enough to be called to a demographic that you already belong to, this step might feel a little bit more natural, but it's just as much work. You don't just need to participate, you need to contribute. Create content that adds to the conversation, that's helpful and beneficial to the group. Don't just prove to them that you're a part of the community, show them that you're a leader, that you understand their interests, goals, and ideas, and that you share them and want to help them reach their aspirations. What? Whoa, what's happening? What? Step 3, identify what your audience needs. When COVID hit and the majority of the churches in the world were forced to close their doors, there was a sudden, immediate need for live streaming education and guidance. Blackbar, the ministry I lead, had only been up and running for a couple months at that point. We had been consistently creating video and podcast content for the church media world, teaching them how to use these powerful tools to help preach the gospel. But I'll be honest, up until that point, I had never live streamed a church service a day in my life. My background is in graphic design, video, and marketing. But we saw a need. We reached out to the people who did know how to stream and gathered as much information as we could. And in a single day, the week that most of the country shut down, we produced the first of a long series of video teaching churches how to live stream their service for next to no money and as quickly as possible. Listen. We had a list of 60 plus video ideas that we were running through that I felt was important for the church media world to understand. We had a rubric set out. We were making slow and steady progress towards growing our ministry every day. But the day we decided to change course, get out of our comfort zone, and meet the need of the community we were serving, the ministry of Blackbar exploded. We went from hundreds of subscribers to thousands, a couple hundred views to over 100,000 on a single video. Over 1,700 pastors, volunteers, and church media professionals have joined our Discord community where we help them troubleshoot problems, brainstorm creative ideas, and talk about ways to use tech, media, and marketing to show the world the love of Jesus. We had so many requests come in for help, we had to start asking for volunteers to help fill the need. But because we were modeling the kind of people that we needed and had spent the time and energy to identify with our audience, we had more than enough willing and capable trained tech professionals to guide thousands of churches towards getting online every Sunday. Now, I'm not just telling you about our ministry because I'm excited about it and it's a success story. I'm telling you about it because I think we followed a rubric that is workable for every different kind of Christian community online. It's when the body of Christ is able to meet these needs, whether they're spiritual or not, that the world gets to see the love of Jesus in a tangible, real way. Identify your audience, identify with your audience, and identify what your audience needs. The church desperately needs individuals who are willing to build and lead these communities online, and I believe that exactly the kind of people we're looking for are exactly the kind of people who are listening right now. We don't just need Christian content creators. We need digital missionaries willing to invest their time and energy into the darkest parts of the internet, willing to understand and connect with the world using languages and platforms that they already understand. We need to stop having church online and start being the church online. That's how we use the internet and media and tech and marketing and photography and video and writing and makeup and gaming and sports and philosophy and basket weaving to reach the world. If you want to chat with us and other digital missionaries searching for ways to reach the world online, check out our Discord. Until then, thanks for watching. Thanks for CRTV for having us. God bless and Godspeed.